Okay. Stream is up and working, right? Yep. Connie, hello. How you doing? So I will warn you that the dogs have had to be separated for a while. So if you hear any crying, I'm not leaving dogs to just cry, but it's been my life now for 3 days. So if you do come through on stream, know that I am paying attention. Okay. Design challenge time. So, where is it? Where's my diagram? Close them. Localhost 5000. I decided to get an Excalibur instance, so now I'm fully there. How's it going today? My vacuum robot, hang yourself. Dear. I can never have a Roomba or anything like that here. Most of our floors are laminate floors, but even then there's enough stuff around the house to keep it busy for months. Okay. I have trouble with him too. Yep. Oh, there's the other one. So yesterday, the reason I didn't stream was I had a headache from listening to these two from 2 a.m. yesterday until 5 a.m. yesterday when I finally got some sleep. And then I went to stream and my head was killing me and they started again. They continued howling and barking and crying for the next 7 hours until my wife and daughter got home from school. Yeah, but it's still easier than clean myself all the time when you have a dog. Yes, yeah. Our dogs are short-haired, but they still shed quite a lot, so we end up mopping the floor. It wasn't no. Although Deflux on the stream the other day gave me a good reason for headache, right? He was persistent, that's for certain. So, yeah, if you hear the dogs barking, I do apologize if they come across. I can try and cut them out, and I probably will try and noise gate them, but might not be possible when I'm talking. Oh, there he goes. If that's good. Noisy bugger. Are you going to stop barking when I'm not talking? Nice. Yeah, I saw your message. That's cool. So now it's open season, right? Come on, dog. He's going to wait until I'm trying to capture a time when he's barking and I'm not talking. He seems to wait. I'm watching the camera. That's why I'm looking down here, by the way. And I apologize. I know this is hardly riveting stream content, but I want to kind of balance it now, rather than trying to do it midstream, if someone starts to recognize the dog's barking all the time, if I can noise gate it out, then I will do. I've Merlin and Fullbots to test it and see if it's easy enough. Nice. I mean, the amount of time you've put into that, I can't see how it wouldn't be. You got to be careful how much you obsess over it. That's for certain. Especially if you've got other projects you want to do. He's going to be quiet, then I'm going to proceed. I've just switched back. So the right-hand side monitor, I have primarily on as a second monitor for this, but I also have it hooked into the stream PC. So I have to go and switch the source to get it to the stream PC. I have a completely different view on it. I mean, yeah, you've put a lot of time into early refinement when no one picked it up before. I would have probably, although you've put a lot of effort into it to make it very refined, I think it's definitely something people would pick up. And you've been keeping the what I want to do in Godot the focus the whole time and comparing it to Gift. Yeah. I'm not Gift compatible anymore. Oh well. Sometimes you gotta cut over, right? So what am I doing today? So the last two pieces of data that need to be produced are tickets and notes. Right? Notes technically belong to a ticket. They don't have any independent value. So I kind of I add the notes by pulling the ticket and having an add note method on the ticket. So there's no direct way to add a note, right? There's no repository. You don't use a repository for notes. You just use the ticket to get the note, right? And you would query the notes off of the ticket. That's kind of the goal. But when it comes to promoting that information, this causes a challenge, because now when I add a note, well, first when I add a note, I need to add a domain event. New ticket. New note was added to ticket. I mean, there's no concept of a note beyond the ticket, so I'm not going to put that to ticket, would just be redundant, right? Now this is the identifier of the ticket, and then the user identifier. Ticket note isn't going to have an ID. It doesn't have an identifier. That's the challenge. So in this system, I can pull the note, right? But if I'm publishing it, what I've got to consider here is what happens to this ticket, right? So if I go to this, so my tenant users, tenants, users, planning items all have a shareable ID on a public identifier, identifier as I call it. The ticket has an identifier, right? So it has that globally unique, or unique within my system, but it has a unique identifier that is not is unique to this system. So when I promote it, I can still refer to it all over the place by its GUID, because I know what I'm talking about, and then the internal ID is always masked, and I have pure IDs as internal. But notes only attached to a ticket. So one option would be, and I'm not sure I like the option. One option would be I have kind of I publish a event source. I publish a ticket, right? So this would be title my ticket, right? Event source note was added, right? And I attach the tickets, the notes to the ticket, right? Hello, welcome. How's it going? Today. And this way, you know, the content, I love how it just helps me out here. created by, right? So I could publish the notes like that as an array, but then Kafka does have a maximum message size. So if you add a lot of notes to a ticket, you don't want to run the risk of missing that. It's going well, just in a meeting now, and it's bad to bed. Hope you're doing well. Doing good, thank you very much. Meeting and then back to bed. Oof. Although work from home all the time, I would to get away with that. I'm pretty sure some days I would take the meeting from bed. So if I publish notes like this, right? Then they're attached. So my alternative would be to put an identifier in them and have notes published as independent objects. But I think that would be wasteful too. So do I assume that... So Kafka has a maximum of something like 15 meg. Well, I think the default message size is 1 meg. Right? How much data would I have to produce? I mean, obviously I know how much data I'd have to produce to hit that 1 meg limit, but how many notes are likely to be added to a ticket? And can I rely upon that? Right? If I make that assumption, then someone comes along and adds a note that goes over the size, and that message fails and my entire system crawls to a halt, and I don't have that sort of... I don't have an ability to recover from that, right? So do I have to make a messy design decision by making notes an entity that gets published separately? Because moving them up to another level, right? Making notes a primary object and sending the array of notes as an entity attached to that would not necessarily be any better. Let's go back over here. Let's create this event for right this second. So in our domain, ticket, events, note was added. And it's an I domain event. Oh, he's going to start up again. And we're going to have GUID ticket identifier, GUID user created by user identifier, and let's just go that for right this second. Public GUID ticket identifier equals ticket identifier. Now this will publish. So the room has found a place it loves. Let it be free. Stupid idiot bot. AI is going to take over the world, though. Oh, here he goes again. Oh, he's going to howl now. Awesome. Oh, unfortunately, I apologize, but the only way you're going to hear the dog is if I'm talking. So I will try and I will hope that he calms down. Okay, so note was added. We'll publish. What does that do for me? Well, this is a domain event, right? So I can react to this, right? So I can just do something in this ticket system. Good. The female dog, she's calmed down. The male dog, he's the one that's like just barking all the time. But like I said, I spent 7 hours yesterday with them constantly barking and crying after being awake since 2 a.m. Hence no stream yesterday. Morning, Frankberg. How are you doing? So, I'm trying not to do the easy thing here, right? I'm trying to make sure I'm stopping and pausing and making sure that I think the design of this through before I go ahead and make the decision, right? So, if I publish, I want to publish notes. There's no question I need to publish the notes, right? It's just how do I publish them, right? How do I attach them? Do I attach them to the object? If I attach them to the object, how big can that get, right? So maximum Kafka message size. Or default. That says 15 meg, but default maximum. I'd rather have something from Confluent. The default broker. Okay, I do have it. Okay. Default broker, a limit of around 1 meg for message batches. Okay, so 1 meg is the maximum message size. So at that point, as I'm designing for Kafka as a primary component of my system, it would be foolish. I mean, for maximum data throughput, right? If I make large messages, I'm just going to make it harder to transfer that data. So if I make smaller messages that are quicker to get through the system, that's fine. So it does mean that this ticket note kind of needs some identifier of its own, right? Because it needs to be published independently. Now, it doesn't need to be a base entity because it's not treated as a base entity. It will always be attached to it will always be attached to the ticket. So I'm trying to think through what I do need, right? Because I have the ticket identifier on it. Identifier. It's going to be identifier. No. A user identifier. Right now I don't have the concept of updating a note. So we'll talk about that afterwards. Private, GUID. And then we need to go and modify our table structure. Scripts, ticket notes. Identifier, unique identifier, not null. Hey, that is that. So this will allow me to promote it around the system. I can use this identifier to track an individual note. I can produce a note to a stream of notes. Yeah, I think that should work. Let's go into the database and add that. Oh, this is going to be the hard part. Modify table. New column. Identifier. Unique identifier. Not null. Default expression. New ID. That should at least populate it out with an ID, yeah. On the entity framework side, now in the infrastructure, we need to do ticket note configuration. And now this has builder.property, P goes to P.identifier, that has field identifier. And again, if you've used an entity framework before, this pattern is going to look kind of funky, but there's a valid reason, I promise. So now in ticket, right, we add a note here. This note was added. Essentially could have just the note identifier, right, because it's got everything else it needs. Public GUID identifier, right. Now in here, we just need to do this needs to be that, add to the notes, and then that's note.identifier. I could still do GUID ticket identifier. That way, if you could capture that first, but let's see whether I want to do that. Identifier. So I'm doing this on development, by the way, because I need to tighten this up, which is not probably the best practice, but I do need to get this tight. I previously had notes broken, so I had to fix notes first. So I was going to do that, then move on to the story. But being that I'm all on development anyway, at this point, I might as well just proceed with this piece and get it working. If there's anyone else working on the project with me, that would not be the decision I'd take. But noisy boy. I can guarantee dogs do not have a finite amount of woofs in them, that's for certain. So now we have the entity configuration set up. We have the schema captured, so I don't have to worry about losing that change. I've got an event note was added. So now in our application layer, realistically, I need to organize this a little bit better, I think, because I kind of see the benefit in having this as use case levels, but right now they're entity levels, and I don't think that's really good organization for these. But again, going through the different examples, people will do it this way or the other way. But I'm going to put a subscription to subscribers or subscriptions. I'll put in there. Tenants, tenant users. How do I do it? How do I lay this out? Tenant subscribers. That's how I do it. Subscribers, and then again there's a directory for note was added. Right, and then I have publish integration as a class, right? So that pattern is one I have shown that I've used so far. Now it comes with a cost because note was added. Is now a namespace above this, so I have to now alias the event to be able to create the handler, event handler, notification handler rather. Note was added notification. Right. So now this will fire when the actual entity is saved to the database. This will get hit. So in here we're going to do an iRepository of interesting. I said I wasn't going to have a repository of note, but I don't think I can have a repository of ticket to get this because I'm going to publish the note independently. So I do need ticket note notes repository. So that's an interesting contradiction, which I will come back around on afterwards. Really, you're just going to keep, like, it wasn't there already. The benefit of doing this is my actual publishing is disconnected from my saving of the data. So my actual action of saving the ticket is self-contained, right? So this is it's adding a note to the ticket, and it's descriptive, and it saves there. So I don't think I need that, because I think underneath that will yeah, that will save changes. So I don't need to save changes there. So the act of updating, when it goes to save changes, when that commits to the database, that will then publish that domain event, which will then get picked up. It will actually get put into an outbox, right, as an event, and that outbox processor happens. The reason for this is with this disconnect here, if it fails to save to the database, it doesn't do this event first, right? As part of the regular flow, it will roll back everything. So if it fails to save the entity to the database, I haven't created that event unnecessarily or triggered that event and had that event subscribed to and whatever. So it does give a natural disconnect between the two things. So I have to have saved things to the database So they have to be in a good state to be able to be picked up by this. So it might seem like a little overkill, but it actually works pretty well. Okay, so now when the add note for ticket, and again, I'll worry about update later. Now this publish integration is simple because it's realistically var note equals notes repository dot single or default new entity by ID specification ticket note. Oh, that's an interesting one because I don't have if I make it entity base, that goes away and that goes away. Where can I find this project from scratch to follow you up? You can't hype time. This is a personal project that I do intend to make a project, a full product out of. So this code is not open source. I have streamed from pretty much the beginning of this recent stuff. So there was plenty of backlog videos. And I'm also more than happy to stop and describe things. So you don't have to necessarily worry about catching up if you have specific questions or thoughts on design, etc. I do stream a different project on Mondays and Tuesdays regularly, which is a water app, which is fully available, aimed at kind of bridging that gap of, hey, here's some architectural discussion and design discussion that we can actually apply to a project that everyone gets the source code for. And that is linked in the card below on YouTube. So I apologize for that, but it is kind of, this is to the point where I do want it to become a product, and open sourcing it would not be a wise move, right? Argument null exception dot throw if null note. So I've been doing this rather than doing an if around this because this is a genuine exception. If that isn't actually set, then I just want to throw an exception. That's all I want to do, right? So I'm just doing that here. The event push is a little bit more involved than this, and I need to do a separate event for that. But yeah, hype time. If you have questions about what I'm doing, if you want me to look at something, or you are interested in anything specific, I'm more than happy to stop and look at that, discuss it. This stream itself is not aimed at me being productive for the actual code. It's aimed at allowing that discussion and promoting that discussion. And I'm more than happy to share thoughts, opinions, ideas about what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and have a discussion over my approaches. Also, there is a Discord that you're more than welcome to join, and I can answer more specific questions in there as well. There are components of this that are in GitHub. So the Kafka components, the outbox component for the mediator, those are in my GitHub library as open source. So I do take pieces of this application, and if there's anything that's useful that is shareable beyond the application, I'm kind of open sourcing those pieces independently. Okay, so I need a new event here, right? So in messaging events, right? For right now, this is where this is going to live. Ultimately, I probably do want to deal with schema of some form. Kafka schema is something that has eluded me for a while, so I probably want to spend some time and get into that, right? Ticket note integration event. I'm just going to tag every integration event on everything in here right now, just to be very clear what it is. It doesn't really what did that do then? Oh, what? Oh yeah. It's primary constructor. This syntax is still kind of weird to me. The primary constructor syntax is going to be that. And this is going to have public GUID ticket identifier, public GUID identifier, public string content, public user identifier. I don't want a curd on. Date added. No. So this integration event, right? So going back to, let's go back to the diagram at this point. So this is the system so far, right? So we have tenant management. Tenant management, you can register users, you can add tenant, or you can register a company, an organization. You can add users to that tenant. Those events publish as integration events into Kafka. Planning, you can publish a planning item into Kafka. Right, tickets. Now you can produce a ticket, and I'm working on the notes component, right? So this piece here. So the goal is very much by the end of this stream, I should be able to consume these events, right? And then we'll start talking about a schema that contains all of them, right? The purpose being, if I can create a schema that pulls all these things together, then I can make a read version of this database, and my API, my UI can be built purely off of that API, that data, right? So it's a read-only version. From an application perspective, the client app would talk into this one and get out of this one, right? So the APIs would be presented in that manner. So using an API gateway, everything's going to look transparent, but there's going to be the write and the read side of the application. Okay, so in the event publisher here, we need a key. So in this case, that's note.identifier. Note. Oh. Kind of need to do that, right? Don't you? Note.identifier. And then we need a new event. So this is a new note ticket note integration event, right? And the event source. Now this is where this gets tricky now, because I want to make sure that it's this, right? But that's the namespace. So if I was gonna say, oh, I want the notification, I want the event. Well, technically I do, but I'm going to use the namespace because that's what I actually want to tie it up with on the other side, right? If I use notification, then it won't be very obvious, and it will be disconnected. So note was added was the reason for this event, right? Because multiple things can publish the event or trigger the integration. So I need to know what. So that's that. And then, so here the identifier is our note.identifier. Dota, thank you very much for 6 months. Really appreciate it, sir. Welcome. Good morning. Note.ticket.identifier. See if that works. I don't think that's going to work, but we'll see. I'll see why. My sink won't drain, it's full of water. Oh no, you got a plunger? In the kitchen sink or bathroom sink? Use a plunger and think that with all that works. Hey, you got the N64 controller. You hit 6 months. You got the now you've got the N64 controller. That's cool. Note.content. User identifier is note.user identifier, and date added equals note.date added. There's still going to be a date on the event, but this could potentially be different if it was disconnected. So I think that's more important. And again, for those entering the stream, I do apologize if you hear barking in the background, but my dogs are currently being separated, and they are not settling on the idea. So if you hear barking, it is Loki, and he is being a noisy boy. I'm not ignoring them. I see them on a camera. But like children, you can't run to them every time they cry. Okay, so this needs a cancellation token on there. Now, so what I just did there to make that go through, by the way, was I added entity base here, which did take off some information, right? So date added, an identifier ID. So these things are now, right, components of ticket note, but they are now base entity. But now I need to go and add last updated as well onto my ticket, which I didn't have previously. But I mean, realistically, I was about to head there anyway, right? But the purpose of not making entity base was that I don't want domain events on my ticket notes. Ticket notes should never have the concept of domain events. Now, because I'm doing everything through ticket, it's not going to really make a difference. But again, your code tells a story. And by putting that on there, I'm now telling the story that this can be. So maybe I want to pull these fields out separately for this entity. But now I can't publish events about it. So I'm kind of in a catch-22 in respect to that. Apex, good morning. How are you doing? Let's go and go to ticket note and add last updated. No, that's nullable. That has no default. Okay, so now we should be able to publish a ticket note integration event. And well, tired. How are you? I'm well, tired. These dogs had me up at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m. So I had maybe a couple of hours of sleep. Maybe it's just launched into it. A farmer had a 3-year-old calf disappear without trace. I thought it was coyotes. Oh no. Junicus, good morning. How you doing? Ah, someone swiped. That's ridiculous. Okay, so let's see if this runs. So if this works for everyone, this will then conclude this layer, right? So these will be all publishing to Kafka. And then with that done, we can work on the consumption side. I'm thinking a little sore from last night's gym activity. So now I'm a brown belt. I'm eligible to do the higher level classes. Well, I've been eligible since I was a red belt, but realistically now they've been pushing me to do the higher level classes. So my daughter has been doing them because she's going for her black belt, and she's like, "You should come to this class." I'm like, "No, I'm going to be hungry." I just read hungry. I'm going to be hurting. I'm I'm going to be hurting too much. This is why I don't look at chat when I'm trying to talk. I'm going to be hurting way too much from that because that class is way harder. They throw more, they roll more. The pace is faster. I mean, no, I don't need to be hurting that much. So, yeah. Well, now also very dangerous trespassing a farmer's land to steal his calf. Yeah. No. Decidious, good day. How are you doing? Sorry, I was hungry that day. Ow. So I bought a new set of headphones, some Sennheiser IE200s. They're in-ear monitor headphones, and I'm trying the different tips to see which ones fit. So far, the headphones are really nice and clear sound, but yeah, because the other ones were hurting my ears. Did I compensate defaults with 1 point? Defaults would have to turn up for this stream, and he doesn't, so I don't have to worry about it. But yeah, I do need to. I'm going to put some whinge points on my channel, and defaults is going to accumulate them an excessive rate. Some services not able to be constructed. Note was added. Lifetime unable to resolve service. I event publisher. What? Why are you unable to resolve service? Do I not publish anything from tickets application so far? Ticket was promoted. Do I not promote? Oh, did I not get a ticket? No, I didn't. So that is, I haven't put the actual pieces in for event publishing yet. No, domain event publishing. So this is the challenge, right? When I'm using two different pieces of code, right? I'm using domain events, which are publishing events internally. They're actually notifications in Mediator. So those, when I change the object, when I add to the object, I'm publishing an event that can be responded to. Different things can happen in this case, right? If I promote a ticket, right, this is what actually hooks the service up to actually do the promotion, so that the actual promotion to this external service is done independently of the actual code doing the updating the promotion. So it does keep things moving along. But now I've got integration events, which is what, again, why I'm worrying about. I'm calling these integration events, right, just to make sure they're clear that these are actual integration events. These are events that go beyond the bounds of this context and move into other contexts, right? So I was obviously under the impression I was doing something with tickets already, and I wasn't. So I now need the parts of the application, and this is what I'm going to tidy up, right? I've got to get this down to a fine art as such. You can see I had the code selected. So I want to work at some point on reflecting over and saying, hey, these components of my system are things I will always need, and add them and whatnot, so I can wrap these all up as a bundle, because then it's easier to get a new service started. Fine art, eh? Like in Blender. So if I go to tickets now, go into my program, and let's put that down here. Right, we need Kafka configuration now. And we can do event publisher, and then reference Kafka publishing. So again, I'm using my original version of this library, these Kafka components. I did break these out as a NuGet package, right, which are on my GitHub. And I should use them. It's just I want to kind of make sure I've gone through the use cases and tested them a little bit more. Rather than trying to worry about, oh, I've got to update the NuGet package, push the changes, get them. Yeah, that's why I have a local NuGet, because it's quite a struggle. So I'm going to need a Kafka section here now. Use C# identity. Yes, kind of. I mean, I'm using Auth0 for identity stuff. So I pull that in, and yeah, the way that works is, hi Temptic, how you doing? When so Auth0, I log into Auth0, I get the jot, and then I have the I'm using, where is it? Add Auth0. So I pull all the Auth0 components here. So then when I get into the application, I have a user. Not bad. I'm getting. So what I'm aiming for here is using, is getting all these published to Kafka, right? And then I'm going to start consuming this shortly. Oh, so Tempting, this is when I was trying to draw you the diagram the other day, right? So this is laid out clean architecture style, similar to what you were trying to do. So my presentation layer, my application, infrastructure, and domain, right? So my domain has my entities in it, right? My address, my tenant, etc. These are the objects that go into the database ultimately. But I have my domain events, etc. in here, and any domain services in here, right? My infrastructure is actually, it's got my entity framework components in it, and in here I define this specific version of my repository, right? So there's a base repository down in a shared library, which is defined like this, right? This is the repository base that I was talking about, right? That takes DB context, right? And then the application doesn't care about that because it's just using, so I'm using a library called Ardalis specifications and his entity framework extension of that. So it means that all I do is to get a, I don't have many tickets, probably explains queries. And then the actual, if I go to tickets queries, right? If I get a repository of the thing, it's just an I repository. There's no specificity here, and I'm using specifications. So these specifications are actually what defines the query. So there's a generic repository. You don't have to create specific ones. And then if you're querying them, you can query them, and you can just, here's the query, right? So this is how I'm using repositories. So that's why my example to you might have looked a little bit strange. I think you were on the right track though, but okay, so let's get this node into the I'm not reading out the canny shenanigans. You guys just have fun with them. Okay. So this is going to be my ticket note integration event, right? So what this does is, in the code, when I say, hey, publish an entity, publish an event, right? It looks up this event and says, okay, which topic do I need to publish it to? So there's code in there to do this, which keeps it cleaner. Alucard, hello. Hello, I have one bit out of topic question. I'm a 31-year-old. I have done a basic Java course, like really basic before OOP. Is it too late for me to become a software engineer and have a decent career? No. If you've got the energy to go chasing it and you want to do it, no. Like, you want to do it, go chase it. Actually, who was it? Mackie. We were talking about this the other day. Mackie only recently started picking up programming again, and they're slightly older than me. I'm 43. They're slightly older than me, and they went in the military and didn't do programming until 2017, and then became a programmer. And now they've got a career doing programming. So So absolutely, it's never too late. I mean, again, there's so many resources out there now that weren't there even 20 years ago to pick up development, to learn from it, to do cool things. And you're able to show off your abilities a little bit easier than you've ever been able to do. So, yeah. Yeah. So I would, if you want it, go chase it. Absolutely. So we're going to publish 2 Liquid Sky ticket notes here, right? So we need to go into, let's see if Kardec works today. Is it going to start up Kardec 5.1.1 or is it going to start up Kardec 5.0 like it's been doing? I think they released a bugged version of this. I want to keep giving it a try because if I go forward with this application, then I want to use better tooling. So I'm trying to use this tool. Okay, so is the right version now? Still doesn't support zoom on the font, or does it? Oh. Canny, thank you very much for the sub. Appreciate it. Accidentally click this button. What does it do? Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate the support. So we'll go over to this tool. Sorry, this doesn't have dark mode, but yeah, it does have a font that's a little bit more readable. So again, in here, I'm going to create a topic, liquid sky dot ticket notes, and I don't need to worry about replicas. I don't need to worry about all that right this second because, you know, that again, that's not going to affect me right this second. This is just my naming convention, right? I'm just trying to highlight those things. So Liquid Sky ticket notes, the topic needs to be there before you actually go and publish to it. You should configure a topic beforehand. If you're using Kafka, partition sizing and scaling options are kind of something you want to build into your strategy. You don't just want to bundle through. So it's easy to do it because you can actually have it create the topic for you automatically. But you shouldn't rely upon that feature because it will create it with whatever your default settings are, which is normally one partition, which severely limits your scaling possibilities. Just wanted to saw something move on the screen. Oh well. Tuki, thank you very much for the follow. Appreciate it. Welcome. Anyone new joining the stream? This stream is obviously it might seem a little bit more advanced, right? I'm an experienced developer. I've been developing for quite a while. I'm building something that might seem quite intimidating. But it's not something that I want to be intimidating, right? It's something that I'm happy to talk about. I'm happy to stop and go over basics with. I'm not going to divert a stream for your personal need, right? So if you have questions that you want to have answered, I would highly recommend dropping into the Discord, and I'm happy to discuss things in there. But if it's relevant to this code, if it's, hey, why is it doing this? What's it doing? How's this working? I'm happy to stop and review those things. For everyone's benefit as well. So I do want the stream to be as much a beginner-friendly stream as an advanced-friendly stream, right? So it's software development. It should be more inclusive. We should be making sure that people are brought along with the journey, because it is, we kind of have I've been doing this a while, I forgetting what it's like to begin attitude about things in general. And the way we title developers shows that. So, the stream is not about my productivity. The stream is about me sharing what I'm doing. I do apologize for those that might want the code. but I'm not open sourcing this. This is a platform that I want to build. I do want it to become a product, so I do want to. I'm investing my time into doing that too, and I don't want to just say, "Hey, here's the code." Well, I never got that the points icon is a floppy disk. It's called game saves. It's been there for how long? That's funny. Oh dear. On the topic of points, I mean, I would imagine at this point several people have quite a lot of points. If there's things that I could do with channel points, if there's ideas that people have for them, let me know, because I would happily use them. Because the channel points thing, I think, could be utilized more. I just don't know how. Right, so that's why there's silly things in there right now, right? Oh dear dog, calm down. Okay, so with this configured, with this added, I should be able to run this application up now. And let's see if it actually starts. Let's start the stack. So I've got the Alexa set to, if it hears the dog barking, it'll play music for them, right? It just keeps pinging me. I heard a dog barking, and it'll actually say, "Hey, doggo, here's some music." So if you create a topic in Kafka, can you change it after the fact, or do you create a new one and replay the old one into the new configuration? You cannot modify certain things about a topic in Kafka. So once it's created, let's see, you have certain configuration that I believe you can change. Yeah, you can change certain things about it, right? Throttle replicas, retention bytes, maybe. But you can't change somebody talking next to you. No, no one's talking next to me. The dog is barking. So yeah, I apologize, but it doesn't. I can't gate him out because it's only being picked up when I'm talking. So I'll move the microphone a little closer to make it a little bit more personal. But yeah. Oh, now he's moving closer. So yeah, Kafka, you can change certain things about it, right? Retention milliseconds. So this is retention milliseconds. So by default, I think that'll work out to be like 2 weeks or whatever, right? Oh, okay. So I think by default Kafka keeps messages for 2 weeks, right? So there's a retention policy by default. You can override it on a per topic configuration. But partitions you cannot alter after the fact. So partitions are the way of distributing that data. So you get scale through partitioning and through brokers. So you get speed and scale through partitioning plus brokers. So the more brokers you throw, the more you can process as throughput. The more partitions you process, the more partitions you offer, the wider your content can be, right? So, yeah, I use Cowl for there's so many different Kafka UIs. Let's have a look. No, not Kowloon. I don't need to. Is it a browser-based one? Is it a web UI? Right, yeah, there's all sorts like this. Nice. Good day, by the way. Yeah, Kafka Offset Explorer. This was called Kafka Explorer originally, and they got them to rename it to Offset Explorer. It is a paid tool if you're using it in a commercial environment, but yeah, it's a pretty good UI. Most of the actual desktop UIs are built around Java, I think, using Java. Then again, most of Kafka development is done in Java, right? So, okay, so tickets is there. So now, if I go to, well, first I need to log in, right? Unfortunately, the dogs have hit an age that this is going to be a thing for them. And I just have to, I can't, well, I don't want to ignore them, but I have to keep them separate right this second. Just making the barking worse. So I do apologize. Java swing, yep. Okay, so if we go over to here and we paste that in, we can get tickets, right? And then if we go to add a note to a ticket, oh, right, so this is going to be tickets, a new note added for this ticket. Does the streaming PC have an NVIDIA card and it could run NVIDIA broadcast if you do? It has a Titan XP right now. I have a 2080 Super that I need to put in it. And the noise gate on the Go XLR doesn't play well because I do have crisp AI audio, which from my experience is better than NVIDIA's. But it doesn't play well with the Go XLR. They cause interference with each other apparently in some way, shape, or form. I was a very early adopter of Crisp, so I was grandfathered into their old pricing scheme. So I pay like $30 a year for Crisp. Also, Rider is written in Swing as well. Will they extend the Swing functionality? Yeah, quite extensively, it seems. Yeah. Yeah, so I do use Crisp, and I do have it on the Stream PC, but I'm going to put a 2080 Super into the Stream PC. Right now it's got a Star Wars Titan XP in there. Okay, so we're going to add a note, and this should produce a topic, a message to this topic, right? If I've wired everything up correctly and not broken anything, so let's go. So we have the event, right? So there's our note was added event, right? I have to wait 10 seconds for that to process because it's on a loop of 10 seconds. So what I'm looking for is here, this. I'm trying to see that that's going. It looks like that's not going. So that's not picking up and processing. Why are you not picking up and processing that? Did you error? Tickets project, debug output. Oh yeah, here we go. Object reference not set to an instance. Publish integration. Line 21. Oh. Note was added. Let's go to ticket note. So there's our ticket note. Right. So this is one of the beauties of having this outbox pattern, right? So if this is a bug in my code, 68DA8, right? So I can put a breakpoint here. I can stop that project, right? And I can restart that project. And that will not pick up again because until the outbox message gets processed properly, it's just going to keep leaving it in that state. It's going to fail. It's going to back off. It's going to try another minute and get there. So it does give me that flexibility. Right, so I identify a 68DA. I believe that's correct. 68DA. Ticket note 68DA. Okay, so let's go and F10. Ticket note. We have a note. We have a user identifier. We have our identifier. We have an ID. Do you remember me saying that won't be included? Okay. So this is one of the challenges of what's Kafka actually? In my country, it's known as a terrible zombie drug, but I'm sure it's something. Yeah. Okay. So Kafka is a again. I prefer not to because so Kafka came about from LinkedIn, right? LinkedIn, a group of engineers at LinkedIn needed to produce the logs from LinkedIn across many different services in a very short amount of time and a great deal of data, right? So it was engineered there. It became Apache Kafka because it got bundled up into the Apache Foundation. But Confluent is the company that was created by the guys that originally created, and I think it was guys. I'm not just being sexist there. It was created by the guys that actually created the original Kafka. So they created Confluent as an actual support company for the product. So it allows you to, it allows you to do a lot of things, but primarily it allows you to just kind of stream data out of your system and consume it in all sorts of different ways, right? So what I'm using it for here is when I have something happen in one of these independent systems, I publish the event. So I'm calling it an event. Yeah. It was originally made for streaming the logging information out of different systems within LinkedIn. Yeah, most people think, and most people go there. And there is an actual, if you actually look it up, it's because one of the original authors is a very big fan of Franz Kafka. But there is a oh, you little sneak. The dog's trying to climb his way out. I hope he doesn't realize he's big enough to actually jump. Yeah, I'll leave that to look it up. There is a link there. Strimsy. But I'm using it. What I'm using it for here is when something happens in my system, I publish the data that I need to publish. They are pit mixes. They're definitely not purebred pit bull, but they're kind of North American Staffordshire Terrier mixed. They are extremely friendly dogs, lovely and playful. But right now they are they've been separated, so they're on either side of a room with a fence with surrounding them a little bit right now, because they've got to stay away from each other for a few days. So yeah, I'm publishing data out of here. So when something happens in this system, when I add a note, when I add a ticket, etc., I publish that information, and then that gets promoted out. And now in here, I can consume it. And the way I'm using it in this design right now is when I add a ticket, I add a note, I add a planning item, I add a tenant, etc. I'm gonna store it and save it in my write database, and then I'm gonna publish that information, consume it, and create a readable database, which is all this data can join together, so that I can create like a GraphQL API or whatever I want to do as the read side. So then I can build a UI off of that side and optimize that for the read. That's one of the things that we often forget about, right? When we're creating data, when we're creating the software, we're so focused on what we're storing that we are not thinking about how we're reading it. So it's a little hard. Let's see, use Cardac is a nice tool. So far, it's not bad. It's just not very stream friendly, because it's the font size is a little too small, and I can't seem to increase the font size in any way, shape, or form. But overall, as far as the tool goes, it's not bad, right? Because it does give you the streaming ability, the readability. I'm sure I want to do that, but yeah. Yeah, I actually downloaded the Docker image for SkyDraw, so I have it locally. I've got this machine has plenty of resources, so I'm not worried about the resources. Honestly, saying Doggo, I don't want to know how many bugs I had that. How many bugs I had that the most easy solutions, which I made a clever workaround for. Did you draw that DB icon? Yeah, I drew the. That was all me. I just went there. Right. You can actually. I think there was a. Maybe it's not an SQL I draw, but there was something where you could tidy things up. But yeah. Is Kafka UI? Yeah, I mean, whatever. You know, I'm using Offset Explorer for this because the stream it's easy to see. Apart from the fact that everything else is in dark mode and it flashes that white, which I am mindful of. I do apologize for. So yeah, Kafka is very useful. So I'm using Kafka in this case for publishing. There is some other stuff that we're going to go into. So I am going to move around to some message bus stuff eventually. But right now, what I'm trying to focus on, just for everyone's clarity, is after having a discussion the other week, I realized that I kind of need to get to the point where I'm developing some level of UI and trying to put some kind of substance to this so that I can start saying, hey, this is going to be a product. Look, and start worrying about those pieces. So far, I've not wanted to go to the UI side of things because it's not my strong point, right? UI is not where I'm comfortable. I'm definitely a back-end engineer. And I don't care about whether I can be full stack in that I can be competent across the entire range, but I don't like to be full stack, right? But unfortunately, I'm going to have to spend some time on the UI. And again, because I want to do things right, I am going to look at some other technologies on the UI, such as using NGRX and more, what's it called? I can't remember the patterns. Yeah. Yeah, because after talking with Defaults the other week, making this planning item as an actual vertical slice probably makes a lot of sense, right? So, but I need these pieces in place, so I'm making sure that I've at least got this, because one of the challenges is if you work on a system, right, and this system's getting quite substantial now, 39 projects. It is not a tiny little project, right? It is quite sizable for what it does. But if I don't keep up with all the other pieces around the edges, then I risk neglecting them and end up with them falling behind on certain things. So I have to make sure that I'm keeping up to date with a lot of things. So, but what I'm aiming for here right now is I want to get planning items as an actual vertical slice. So for those that haven't been here before, what I'm building here is an Agile, I'm calling it an Agile platform, right? An Agile management platform, or whatever. I've worked in software for 25 years. I have worked in a variety of teams. I have done a variety I've taken a variety of approaches to how to develop software. And once we got to things like Agile and Scrum, etc., the benefits are clear, but the implementation is often muddied. And what that creates is a feeling of frustration normally. Sorry, the dog just started his barking again. He just settled and now he's going back again. So from a developer's perspective, I just want to get on with the work I need to get on with, right? When I need to get on with it. I want to be able to discuss the work that we need to discuss in the right amount of time. And I want to be able to produce something that people can use, right? I don't want to get stuck in where are we with this? Where are we with that? All the meetings that can happen, etc., right? When you were coding, they came up with Agile 2, since we always must use the latest shiny thing, you should refactor all. So, you know, it's yeah, things move quickly, right? So the approach I'm taking is I'm going to build something that has ticketing as a default component, right? Or eventually default component. But then I'm going to split planning, and this doesn't have the diagram because I don't have those pieces right now, but I'm going to split planning and stories into two separate stacks, essentially. And stories are things that developers work upon. Planning is something that product management plans, right? And ticketing is ticketing. It is customers' support requests, etc. But any item in the system will always have a review date, and it will also have notifications. So I'm going to lean heavily into using things like Kafka and eventing in my system to say, hey, this thing changed. Who cares, right? So I'm going to have a notification system, right, that says, hey, this person cares about this object changing, right? So they're going to have I'm going to have masses of subscriptions. And when that thing changes, they're going to get told, hey, this thing changed, by the way, and here's why it changed, right? So that's why I have the event source on those notifications, etc. So what I'm going to focus on right now is getting planning to a point where all the data is flowing through. I can still have, because I need tenant management and planning at the very minimum. Ticketing would be ridiculous at this point to let fall behind. And once I've got these pieces in place, I can start to flex this part and test this part. So my goal, and I still think I can achieve it, is today to get some sort of consumer in here to consume this data out of here. But I'm more than happy to talk about this. There's definitely conversations we've had in the Discord on pointing, and I'm always happy to talk about, you know, everyone's approach to Agile and Scrum and what you like, what you don't like. I'm definitely soliciting opinions on those sorts of things, because it is something that, you know, I have my experience, you have your experience, and if your experience is one of, oh, this doesn't work, I don't like this, I want to take those into consideration, because there's things that I know I can do better. I'm confident I can do better. No, I know that sounds super arrogant, but I'm confident I can do better, and I want to try. Right? Do some kind of tests implemented right now. I do have unit tests, yes. Not around everything right this second, but it will grow. So I do have how many? 100? 116 unit tests right this second, right? So I do have some in place. Tickets has the most. Unit testing is something I care about. Integration testing is something I want to do more of. I just have to set that time aside to do those sorts of things. You know, I'm looking at building an application that most companies would assign many developers to, right? So I'm not under any illusion that this is going to get built fast. But I think that based upon my experience plus my structuring of the code, I think I can accelerate pretty fast through some features and get things working. Okay, so let's talk about why that doesn't work, right? So that subscriber doesn't work because ticket is there. This is going to be difficult. Specifications: ticket by identifier, ticket by ID, ticket by identifier. Right. Ticket notes. We're going to do specifications. Notes by identifier. Spec. So a spec is basically a query definition, right? So this is Ardalis's specifications library that we're using, right? And this is going to say ticket note, right? Yes. Is there a navigation problem? Yeah. So now I just need to specify that it needs to be included, right? So if I do query dot, so let's do how do I write the spec? Yeah, constructor me the single response. Single. I haven't actually written, because I'm not focused on the query side of this. I haven't actually written many of these recently. Whoa. What was that? Specification, single result specification. Dog. Why is that? Why is that not doing that properly? I have to return a model in that one. So, I'll show you what it means. So, we do see that. And we do that. And we take in a GUID identifier. So this is going to be the actual query. So query.where q goes to q dot n goes to n dot identifier equals identifier dot include n goes to n dot ticket. That'll now do that navigation prop for me, right? Rather than always adding it in, the specification will pull it in. So now that join will happen with this specification. So over here now I just do note by identifier spec. Now this is going to complain because it's not a single result, right? Oh, that's why I screwed it up. Single result specification ticket. No, I think I put ticket. Yeah. So now that's the specification, and that'll build the query. So now I should be able to run that again, and that should work. I probably should have created a unit test. I did have a unit test around the other pieces, but again, some things I'm trying to do on stream just to demonstrate them, and getting bogged down in the unit test all the time, I don't think that's necessarily as interesting. I'm always happy to talk about the unit testing. My style is a little different than most. That looks like that worked this time. So there you go, that process this time. So now if we go over to Kafka, go to ticket notes, we should have a ticket note. There we go. And there's our note. So now we have an integration event for notes. Adding tickets should be more of the same. Can you explain why? Can I explain why that event's there? Where's that badge? Why the tests? Why specification? Why I didn't do the tests, or why I need the tests? The dog is just sat looking at the ceiling, just barking. Oh dear. I mean, I'll assume why I'm not writing the tests is just purely because if I start doing TDD for everything right now on stream, it's going to make the stream longer. And I don't have that sort of time, right? My approach is different. Why am I a different approach? Okay, so my style of unit testing is a little bit off from what other people do, right? Certain opinions I have on tests. Let me stop the application stack. Right. Let me make sure this is committed first. Produce events ticket note being added, publish integration. I mean, it's not completely it's not like I'm saying, hey, it's all very different, but my style is a little bit different to other people I've seen write unit tests, and it comes with its own set of challenges. So let's do concerning support ticket notes. I need to change that. when publishing ticket note. So first, my actually that can be. First, I kind of group everything by the concerning, right? So, oh yeah, I do it that way. Yeah. So I kind of concerning the top level component, and the reason this is because it actually kind of creates a nice structure for the actual unit test runner. And then when you concerning support tickets, when ticket is added and is assigned, right? So I have, this is what I'm aiming for. This is the thing that's happened, right? And then I have a user ID is set, ticket has review date, ticket has edit date. These are all positive outcomes. I never write should in these tests, or and I don't like using fluent assertions because it says it uses the word should, and I like the holding to it either is or it isn't. It's not. If it doesn't work, it's red. It's not should. It is. When it's green, it is. When it's red, it's not. So I have this structure of arrange act. So it will call arrange and act in the constructor. So first you arrange all the data, then all the things, and then you act, and then the facts themselves are just assertions. I don't put arrange act assert inside of the unit tests in here. Which is a little different to how some people might write unit tests, right? There's pros and cons to it. It's the way I've evolved to write unit tests. You know, in school we also sort assert equals because you don't really need the other ones. Bad. Well, so fluent assertions is a library that allows me to say, okay, well, so instead, let me find an equal one, right? Fluent assertions would allow me to say result.customer name should be expected, right? But I don't like the word should. So I actually have created is, right? So I think I did do it. So result. Sorry, my hands are cold. Customer name is expected customer name. Yeah, I did. So I kind of like that is result description is expected description, right? This is just an extension, and I'm more than if anyone actually wants this, I'm more than happy to share. This sort of code is the stuff I'm happy to share, right? I don't know if this would be a library, but if you're interested in, if you want these extension methods, you're more than welcome to have. And these are actually just static on top of. But that's the goal there. Right? So I kind of prefer is because it's correct. It's what I'm actually expecting it to be. If it's not that, then it's failed. So, and again, that's just a preference. But result dot created by is, right. So that's my testing style. In a nutshell. Change some equals to is. Underneath that's doing an assert equals. It's just readability, right? And readability matters a lot. When you're writing code, don't worry about being succinct, being getting as much in as little as code as possible. Make it readable, make it maintainable. If it's not optimized, right? Oftentimes the argument might be, oh well, that's slow. Is it? I'd rather go with a few cycles more for readability than I would have ultimate speed for something that I don't need to optimize for. So preemptive optimization is something that I don't worry about. So I go readability first, and then if there's a need for optimization later, you can run through some analysis tools and figure that out, right? So don't panic when you're writing code about being the most optimal. Don't be wasteful, right? Don't be just assigning objects left, right, and center and leaving them be. But definitely don't worry too much about I've got a feeling I've got another 7 hours of Mr. Barky Pants just driving me nuts today. When he goes quiet, his sister will start up with crying. So that's why I like my test to be self-contained, though your testing pattern is also neat and I can see benefits to it. Yeah, and again, it's like, this works for me. Now, if I get to a point and I ask someone else to join me on working on this project, and they come in and they're like, "Oh, I don't like that," then I'm happy to adapt. And I think because it's more important to me that the person that I'm working with or the people that I'm working with can work within the structure than it is that my personal style is realized, right? I have no ego over this. It's just my personal preference of how I'm writing code, right? So I think you should be willing to adapt and change and grow. Yeah. Okay, so that publishes. So I'll come back and do the. I need to ticket note publish. I might change. You're convinced. Again, find what works for you. You know, there's certain things I like to do here, right? I like to make sure that the test, because the test is either going to be red or green. It's not going to be, maybe. It should be this, right? You should be writing it like, this is the outcome. If it's green, that was the outcome. So I never write should. And again, I don't mind having, so one of the benefits as well is, actually, if you're using something like XUnit, I learned this recently. So right now, if I run the unit tests, right, you'll see when handling ticket was promoted, right? So concerning promoting tickets, when handling ticket was promoted, right? So I'm handling that event, right? And actually, I probably should make sure that says event, right? You can actually do in here, I think you can do, yeah, you can do display name. So promotion service, what, promote what's called. You can actually do something like that. And now when I run the test, oh, did that work? Oh yeah, here you go. So you can't do that. You can't do it at this level, sadly. But promotion service promote was called, right? So again, readability. When handling the ticket was promoted event, then promotion service promote was called, right? When the ticket has already been promoted, promotion is rejected. When the ticket has not already been promoted, promotion is accepted. The ticket is marked as promoted. The ticket is updated in repository, and the ticket was promoted. Event is queued. So the readability, making sure you can follow this and see that the behaviors as you expect. The display name stuff is something that I kind of want to tinker more with. I would love for it to come up to this level as well. That would be awesome, because then I could literally write the test more behaviorally. Okay. I'm just going to roll back that one right for this second, because it makes sense. Okay, so I need to, when when I'm doing these streams and I have a goal, it's the worst thing I can do to set a goal for the stream, right? Because I set the goal as consuming Kafka published entities. I didn't get to the consumption part, right? So let's move to a bit of the consumption part so I can demonstrate at least how this works. And actually, for that part, I'm going to push these changes, because these are good changes right now. And I'm going to branch at this point, right? Because this starts to move into all new code. That was getting tickets working. This is new code level stuff. So that's because this is JetBrains Space. Liquid Sky. Gonna work. Did I create a ticket for this one? No. Let's do as a consume so what I'm trying to figure out here right now is what is this piece that I want to build right this second, right? What am I actually going to consume here, and where am I going to consume it into? Well, essentially, from a structural perspective, right, this is where everything becomes generally one object. So it's still an application level entity. It's kind of view. Let's call it view application for now. Consume entities into view. And when I say view, I mean all the data that could be consumed by UI is going to be here, right? So this will be its own database. It will be its own schema. It will consume all the objects, and one of the challenges of this design, and whether I get to it today or not, is I'll work on it and definitely share this. But what's that going to look like, right? Let's do. How do you do new this thing? Reset the canvas. Yeah, let's go with that. So what I'm going to have, I need to figure out as well if I can kind of create libraries of things, because that database object would be nice to have. So I'm going to have data flowing into into the database, right, from outside. I'm going to have planning items. I'm going to have what? Really? I have tenants. And then just do that for right a second. Yep, that works. Where are we? I did not know that was a thing. So they're going to flow into that, and then from the view perspective, I'm going to normalize that data so that I can quickly read that data. So my API is going to sit here, and I can use GraphQL, I could use all sorts of stuff, but there's going to be distinct APIs sat here querying this data out. So as this data all flows in, I'm going to have a different schema there. Yeah, I am running it locally right now, yeah. Because I have Docker, so I just added a Docker image for it. Yeah, I have plenty of resources on this machine, so actually I was tempted to buy a 5950X, which would give me a few more cores. Yeah, hold on. Is there did I do an Scali draw? Yeah. Yeah, there you go. Just the next Scali draw container, that's it. So, off he goes again in 5 minutes. Yeah, so what I need to do now is decide, okay, I'm going to consume all this data. What does my schema look like? How am I going to read it? the benefit of yeah, I don't really care about that, right? Yeah, so for reference, I have a few things running in here right now, right? So I've got Excalidraw, I've got Docker, I've got Kafka. The Kafka stack for the most part is running there. I've got a Baguette server, so that's kind of NuGet. So I have a local NuGet server. That's useful if I am publishing those packages that I'm consuming. NuGet often takes a while before that cache update, so I kind of publish it to my local one first, and then I go and push them to actual NuGet. Consul is a HashiCorp application. It's kind of a front end for service management. I use this for when you go to here. My APIs, when they start up, they'll eventually all register with this, and I kind of use this to kind of get health checks on the actual APIs. So I also use this key value, which I don't have right now, but I use Ocelot API Gateway, and I can store all the key values in here and refer to these services in that configuration, and it will resolve all these services. So then Ocelot uses this to kind of pull the services, so then I can present an API, a single API as a gateway to all the other APIs. So I've got that configured. I found that very useful when I was doing, when I moved this to something like Kubernetes. That's extremely useful. I also have Couchbase. We aren't using Couchbase right this second. That will be coming back. SQL Server, my SQL Server database for this application is in here. RabbitMQ, if I go to mass transit for service bus stuff, although I still might try NATS. I'm not too sure about the configuration yet. That will be there. And then telemetry, I do have the components for OpenTelemetry here. I have been experimenting with that off stream because I kind of want to figure that out. Have I tried Aspire? I have not. But the thing that scares me about Aspire is it kind of I have to integrate code, right? And I don't like the idea of my code being tied to my platform. Maybe I'm wrong, but so far what I've seen is it's kind of a code-based approach. So, Mr. Anhorn, how are you doing? Also off stream, I have kind of been considering what a cloud deployment looks like for this, right? Whether I can cloud deploy this. So we got into a conversation not too long ago over the naivety of building something that I wasn't considering cloud first, or rather, I was building something that I couldn't necessarily just take to the cloud. And I disagreed, and with a bit of reflection, I kind of see the point. So I would need to lean heavily on infrastructure to deploy this application to the cloud. I realized that. And I think that was kind of where my brain was, because it's where I've been I've worked in that world most of my career. Good, finally dropped Spotify. Getting 2 diaper ads in a row was the final straw at premium, so I shouldn't get ads. I have disliked that pattern recently, where paid subscriptions have started to sneak ads in anyway. Oh, we don't want to raise the cost. Getting a lot out of me, yeah. Not in your apps. Code to run Aspire is a separate project. Okay, so maybe that's just not clear from my... Again, I kind of have this mentality of, if I go off and look at all these technologies and stuff, then I kind of go down a rabbit hole of, I've got to kind of do something with them. And I don't like doing them on stream much anymore, because there's just so much to learn. So maybe it's just my naive view of what I've seen from Aspire so far. So, okay, thank you for correcting me on that, though. The working setup with Docker is fine. So right now I do, obviously, I'm everything's local, and I have taken this design to Kubernetes. not with this project, but I have followed a similar pattern. I think it's something I would like to try. Yeah. You're right. Let's produce features on your project, but again, I've got to kind of focus on this part first. But I'm not being closed-minded to the fact that I might have to consider, okay, I'm ready to release this. What happens? So let's create that story that I was going to create, and then, but yeah, I do have a lot inside of Docker. So this machine has, I've given it half the memory of the system to use, almost. So it does have resources available. And I have been contemplating getting a 5950X and dropping that in here, because right now there's a 5800X in here. So there's a 5800X and 128 gig of memory, of which I'm using 50 gig. So I've got space for a while. Two terabyte SSDs. So only concern I have with Aspire is that it makes it too easy to create very complex systems, and that would not be on the dev to manage an experience. Yeah. So okay, well, I'm obviously I'm not going to get much more coding achieved, but I think it is a worthwhile kind of point to make. I'm of a yeah, just 24 hours in a day. I'm of a my career has been pretty much working with on-premise software. Right? I've deployed applications to IIS. I've built software and deployed it manually. Right? I have done some cloud deployment, but not much and not recently. And even then, that was infrastructure stuff because it was early cloud, right? Not the current world. So what does development look like in a world where everything's cloud-based? That is one thing that scares me, right? Because if I have to have my development resources in the cloud, as well as my production resources, what does that look like, right? Should it limit my application development? Should I pull back my architectural ambition because I'm scared of what it means for the cloud? I don't think I should. But in the same, am I limiting myself by not, because if I wanted to use more cloud behavior, I don't know any better ways to term it, using AWS lambdas or Azure functions, etc. Is that the right way to lean into that, right? Or is it okay to deploy what I'm doing, right? Is this pattern of development still viable? I just have to accept it's going to cost more in terms of infrastructure, but it's still perfectly acceptable from a cloud deployment perspective. And so how does my application change? What does my development look like if I do go to a cloud-based environment, right? I asked one person, and their opinion was, move it to functions, move it to cloud, only deploy, only develop in cloud. Do you imagine? Yeah, I mean that's kind of why it's built, right? Let's bring up the diagram. Right. So this is simplistic diagram right now because it doesn't have all the components, but it has the components I'm focused on right now, right? So the idea of these is that they can independently scale. So if planning became heavier, right, this database could be larger, this database could be faster. Planning can be, because although this database doesn't need to be faster because it's a write-only database, right? The data's dropped in there and then produced out of here, so it's a store only for write. The consumer database, the consolidation database is everything, right? But yeah, they can independently scale. They can independently they are independently deployable. The system can lose them temporarily, and not suffer would be my long-term goal, right? So there is resilience there. Working in cloud sounds hard, but having all the info around it easily stood up is nice. I agree. I would imagine once it works, but the challenge is A, how do I get there? B, how do I get there with little cost? Yes, it is a distributed system, right? It's kind of the way I develop by default right now. Because if I want flexibility in my system, right, I'm producing information out of these individual components, right? I have, you see, Pulumi, even the amount of code you were writing, just that's still intimidating to me, right? So these, if I want tickets to be like, again, if I want to apply search, right, I don't want my database here to be focused on the search scenario, right? So I want to produce that data, and search is another consumer here, right? So I would have, Elasticsearch as a component here, and I consume all this data still, and I build to build search indexes off that stuff, and then I build to build APIs to query the search, and it will be transparent to the client because they just be making calls to one API, right, using API gateways. So I can distribute this technology, I can scale this technology, I can keep it all very minimal, right? I think I could build it like this. I could build it just like this. It's going to be a monolith in no. I mean, right now, this is again 39 projects. Okay, 7 of those projects are so 32 actual projects that are in actual use. Still pretty sizable. So to put that all into one application right now, this would already be a monolith, right? And it would already be hard to structure. So yeah, distribute. You're talking about my Pulumi automation. I really like that part. I need to take I'm not criticizing it. I'm just saying that the amount of code that was there, and then obviously you had to. When I was watching you initially, you were kind of just dumping code into one big file before you cleaned it up and stuff. But again, it's I'm trying to think how to term it, and the dog barking is distracting me more than I really would like. If they're doing this tomorrow, I think we may take a few days off stream and wait until they've calmed. It's often said, treat unit tests like code, like production code. And I think that comes with the same. If you're doing code deployment, I think you have to treat it like production code. You can't treat it like just wire up and just a mess. Right? So you've got to kind of design the system. You've got to build the code and write that deployment code as if it is your production code anyway. Right? So I think taking that same amount of care and attention and stuff. But it's another piece to learn. How do I go off and learn that and then still move forward on the platform? And again, if I do that sort of stuff as well, some of it's also driven by the fact that if I do that stuff, I can't do it on stream. Right? I know that I know there's a certain amount of research and tinkering I do, but even I understand that people don't want to watch me sit and learn how to do something like that. Right? That's not what people want from this stream, from what I can tell so far. Are you planning to deploy this infra? Well, right now, my plan would be Kubernetes. Because I've done that. I know some of the pieces. I know I can scale these. I know I can break them out and stuff like that. But again, it's stuff off stream. If I can figure out how to do things, so if I can talk to people and learn some things, then I would like to do that. If there's other ways of deploying this, right? But yeah, I do have. I did get my game app in a similar design up and running. My game tracking library. I did have that deploying to Kubernetes, and like things like the consumer services. This is built using code that I've already practiced that I can break out these can scale. These can be split out as individual services when they go to Kubernetes, even though they're one service here. They actually can be broken out and treated that way so that they can scale independently as well. Because again, the number of consumers goes against your number of topics, the number of partitions. So again, scalability of those pieces, and that's one of the challenges, right? As you're building a distributed system, you have to consider how each piece flexes and moves and grows, and I think that's where, as a developer these days, if you're doing this sort of software, you can't not consider how it's going to be deployed. You can't just write code and yeah, there you go, it'll work, right? That's really impossible these days. So, okay. So I'm going to go and walk a dog and see if I can get him to calm down a little bit. Because I think his bark box should be pretty sore. The next step for this is obviously I do need to get that schema considered here, right? I need to consider, what does this schema look like? What am I consuming? We'll get the consumers up and running tomorrow. So they're going to look like this, right? The consumers are literally going to look something like this, where these consume those events, right? So I'm going to create one library or one application piece that's going to be kind of view. I use solution folders for this, right? And that view component here is going to be my consumption. So I'm going to have what's that going to look like? That's going to look like, well, it's going to look very similar. It's just not going to have an API in it right this second. Source, you can have view, infrastructure, consumers, and all this structure is going to happen for view. And I think calling it view for right now makes sense, because that's what it's going to represent. It's going to represent what is that view out of this, and I can store the data. I mean, it's going to look very similar to as if I just combined all the databases right now. But again, I can add indexes on things. I can speed things up properly. My APIs are stateless anyway, so it doesn't really matter. I have the token for the user, so I can ask for data for a specific tenant, and this then scales appropriately for my needs. So we're going to get to this tomorrow. Again, if you are interested in learning more about this, if you want to ask more questions, if you want to see a little bit of the code, I'm not gonna open source this code, but I will happily kind of draw some more diagrams. I will happily review code. If there's, if you want to ask questions, the Discord is there. I'm more than happy to take discussions further off stream. But I think I'm making good progress, right? I think I'd best remove that for right a second. I think I'm making good progress. I think the patterns are starting to hold up. We'll get the tickets promoted tomorrow. We'll get that entire path flowing through here. We'll get the schema designed out on this side of things, and then kind of put an API in front of that. Then we can talk about things like GraphQL. Am I going to put a GraphQL API in front of it? Because I think that might be one of the powerful things, that now I've got this data combined, I can store it in a format that makes GraphQL pretty simple. Maybe that's the thing. And then, from the UI perspective, we can start moving forward to, okay, what does a client actually look like on top of this? Right now so the front end is here, right? And right now there's just a placeholder app front end. Once I get my first client in there that can log into the application, this project goes away, and that's the one I use to log in. One of the things I'm tempted by is the concept of turning on feature flags for these things. So actually disabling entire verticals of the application based upon feature flags. So, from a I am very much considering the whole future of this. And okay, when I make this product, right? Each component of this, so the ticketing, the planning, etc. Tenant management is a core, right? That's a core feature, but planning and ticketing are extras. If I wanted to deploy it just as a ticketing application, you could just pay for that feature. If I want planning to be a component of that, you could pay for ticketing and planning. If you want the full stack, right through to stories and sprints, etc., then that's an extra piece on top, and you could do it that way. So I am very much considering what it means to turn these features on and off as well in terms of an offering. Because again, with breaking the application up like this, I have the ability to specialize. The information that's in ticketing does not need to be the same information as in planning. They're not the same system, even though they're the same overall architecture. So give me some flexibility. But for now, I am going to get on with this. I am going to raid us out. So please follow along if you can. Again, you know, I'm always happy to have discussions about this stuff. It's definitely something that I do care about. So unless anyone else got a suggestion for a streamer to raid, the Captain Coder is the only one doing even remotely. In my follow list is the only one doing remotely .NET development. Not sure whether he's still working on Unity or not. I'm always open to suggestions for other streamers as well. I'm always interested in finding new people. And if anybody in the streams and is streaming at the time I finish, I'm more than happy to raid over there. I would say raid TBD. So if you're going live at the same time I'm starting, if I'm ending the stream around this time, I'm happy to drop the raid on you as well to share. So let's go over to Captain Coder. Let's say hi over there. I'm going to go and walk a dog. Thank you very much for joining me. Take care. Have a great rest of your day. And I'll see you again tomorrow, hopefully. Thank you.